Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Quick warning, we're getting into the Am I the Devil subreddit today, where it's a place where it's obvious the OP is the arsehole, even though they don't know it themselves. I know some of you are not into those stories, so if it's not for you, it's not for you. Click off right now, but I just wanted to give you that warning before we do get started. Now, today's first story comes from Mama Loves, who says, "My daughter-in-law convinced my son to move overseas." My son is in the army, and his contract is coming to an end soon. Last time my son and his wife were home, they were talking about what comes next. They were talking about requesting the base that's only 2 hours from us. My family and my daughter-in-law's family all live in the same area. They originally wanted to do that to be closer because daughter-in-law's siblings were having their first baby soon. One of my daughters will be engaged soon. My other will graduate soon, and they missed being around everyone they love. However, during these conversations, daughter-in-law would make offhand comments about moving farther away than where they do live now. Like, but if we wind up getting put farther away, that'd be okay too. And even, I wouldn't be mad if we get put somewhere cool like Europe. That should have told me then. After they went home, my son went to put in his request for his next duty station. His sister called him the day before, and he apparently still planned on requesting close to home. Last week, my son got his orders to where they'll live for the next 3 years. And guess what? Somewhere cool like Europe. My son called me 3 days ago to inform me that they would be moving to Germany in the fall. He sounded heartbroken. He says his request for home got denied and Germany wasn't his choice. My daughter FaceTimed daughter-in-law and was talking to her about it. Daughter-in-law says they're getting excited, but were shocked and disappointed at first. But funny enough, daughter-in-law is already several lessons deep into learning German. Daughter-in-law has gone on to say that this is the perfect time for them to move overseas because they're young and not planning on kids. But I just don't understand how things are so perfect if this isn't what she wanted. Son has also talked about how they would visit home every Christmas, but daughter-in-law has started talking about how she's excited to see their Christmas traditions and such. So now I'm starting to worry that she'll not want to visit home, and unfortunately, it's her way or the highway much of the time. Another thing that's been upsetting is hearing about how daughter-in-law's family plans to visit them in Europe, especially when they know that it would be extremely difficult for us to afford visiting them. Not to mention, I absolutely hate flying. Now my daughter-in-law is posting TikTok after TikTok preparing to move to Germany. We're so excited to move to Germany, learning German dessert recipes before we move to Germany, just over and over again, and it's starting to feel like it's being rubbed in. Listen, I understand that they're grown and can do whatever they want, but my son didn't want to move overseas, and up until now talked about how much he didn't want to move overseas. And no matter how old my kids get, going 3 years without seeing them and hearing from them minimally due to time change will be something I don't want. Edit. Lots of people aren't fully understanding, so here is more info. When moving duty stations, you can put in up to 3 of your top requests. If there is an opening in one of those 3 spots, you'll be sent there. That of course is also dependent on rank and time and whatnot. My son was given the option to request 3 duty stations. I believe daughter-in-law convinced him to put Germany on his request list because I don't find it coincidental for her to have been fantasizing about Germany ever since he joined. And I especially don't think she accidentally started German lessons as soon as request became a topic of discussion. That is why I believe she convinced him. Yes, I'm aware he's a grown man and didn't have to put it down, but understand that he talked often about not wanting to be far away, was devastated when sharing the news of their new duty station, and there is a history of her way or the highway, like I mentioned. To me, it just felt like a grown man in the army made a career decision with his wife, which is exactly how marriage is supposed to work, right? Because let's be real here, the son had 3 requests. He chose to put Germany on the list and that's it. That's the whole story. I think he sounded heartbroken is pretty wild because people can be sad to leave family, which of course he is going to be, but also excited about the future and the adventure that comes with it. It almost feels like everything is against her, because when she was talking about, daughter-in-law's family making plans to visit them in Europe, that's not a personal attack, it's just people making travel plans, right? And I don't want to totally downplay that it's difficult, to let go of your children when they become adults and doing their own thing, but at some point you do have to step back and let them make their own decisions and live their own life and be proud and happy of them instead of, trying to hold them back. But Maleficent Oil says, so it got denied and you're upset that she's happy to go somewhere new, making the best of it. He can be disappointed, she can be happy, and neither of them can change it from the sound of it. You're looking to blame her because you're sad. Learn to cope with your feelings without needing to blame someone for them like an adult. I wouldn't want to visit someone with this much contempt for something I had no control either. Sirocco Dream says, you sound woefully ignorant as to how the US military works. Your daughter-in-law did not convince your son to move overseas. He volunteered to join the military, and as long as he keeps re-enlisting, the military will send him where they need him to go. That said, Germany, anywhere in Europe really, is considered a plum assignment, and if he takes the time to network appropriately, can be very effective at helping to advance his career. Not only that, but with 3 years and a Euro rail pass, and he and your daughter-in-law will be able to travel around Europe and have experiences that will enrich their lives. You're disappointed that your baby boy won't be living nearby. Fair enough, but you can FaceTime often and text every day. Stop making your daughter-in-law the villain in your made-up story of how she convinced the US Army to whisk your defenseless boy to the wilds of Germany. If what you have posted here is any hint of how you treat her regularly, then you should consider how your behavior must make her feel. Like it or not, your son chose this woman to be his partner in life. You bad-mouthing her and oozing resentment when she gets excited about the move makes you look exactly like the domineering mother-in-law stereotype. Try to actually be proud of your son and happy for the opportunity that he has earned. Miko says, OP, I think you are directing your sadness and disappointment at the wrong person. Your daughter-in-law has no decision-making power regarding your son's assignment. I can hear and understand your disappointment, however you cannot control your daughter-in-law's feelings and reactions to her own life. And one more commenter from Snoot Opinions who says, sounds like you're projecting your sadness and upset feelings onto your daughter-in-law. She's not in control and didn't make this decision. If she however decides to feel happy about it and make the best of it, that's her choice. Saying that she convinced your son to move when it was really the military's decision is very weird. I'd be very, very careful about making your daughter-in-law the scapegoat here. That's a great way to ruin the relationship with both your daughter-in-law and son, especially now that they're moving away. Yeah, and like all the commenters were saying, I don't know very much about the military, but I'd imagine that it was purely on their decision, right? I imagine some people in the comments will let us know that one. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And let's move on to another story, which comes from Ready Faithlessness 91. And it says, oh my bloody word, get this title. Am I the arsehole? Made lip balm as party gifts and friend tried to shame me about it. So I like making stuff. I'll just get into little things and do them here and there throughout my life. One week, I'll learn how to make jam and preserves. Another week, paint pouring. A different week, leather dyeing. You get the picture. I go off on these things and I often just give away the stuff I make because it's not a business or a job. Anyway, so I had a party with about a dozen other women attending. A few days before, I had noticed I was running low on some of my lip balms and figured I could make my own. So I took all my lip balms, scraped them out, melted them with some shea and mango butter, threw in some old lipsticks, let them cook and blend for a while, then poured them all into empty lip balm containers and a few other small jars. I thought it turned out great. So at this party, I hand these out and most people loved them. This one woman, however, started grilling me on the ingredients. I listed off on what I added and what I could remember about the original balms, though a number of them didn't have the label, not like they could all be that different. She then went on about how she won't use certain ingredients and it's my responsibility to inform her of these and how harmful it was to just give these out without that information. I told her they were gifts and she wasn't required to take anything. She kept getting huffy and I told her it'd be best for her to leave. Now, some of the other guests said she was obnoxious, but I could have brushed her off, as it affected the vibe of the afternoon. So, am I the arsehole? ETA, I didn't just drop the whole balm in. I cut off the top portion. That would have been in contact with my lips. The rest was still down in the tube. Commenter says to OP, you're the arsehole. Everyone heard what was in it and kindly accepted and was just being nice, and they're going to go home and immediately trash it. Dude, while what you did is a genius way to create new lip balms for yourself, giving them to other people is freaking gross. I don't care if you cut the top off, it's still your bottom of the barrel crusty ass used balms and lipsticks that probably have floated through your washer and dryer and butt pockets and purse, and no telling how old they are. This is exactly the kind of thing I'll do for myself, but give it to other people? Oh my god, no. Lazy Thought says you're the arsehole. That you scraped off the top isn't the magic you seem to believe it is. Hatstan says you're the arsehole, in addition to what others have said about hygiene. You don't know what allergies people have, and you gave them something that you didn't know all the ingredients for. You could have put someone in anaphylactic shock. Unlikely, yes, but possible. You really should have checked before handing out something people put on their mouths. OK Aardvark says everyone sucks here. She could have refused the gift and let it go. However, making gifts from used cosmetic products is unsanitary and gross. Honestly, if you handed me a balm and told me it was made from used products, I'd politely thank you and then would throw it straight in the trash after I left the party. And I probably wouldn't accept anything homemade from you in the future. And one more from Happy Banana who says everyone sucks here. I agree she was rude, but your title is misleading. You didn't make lip balm. You melted down and combined your old stuff. Quoting, she then went on about how she won't use certain ingredients and it's my responsibility to inform her of these and how harmful it was to just give these out without that information, and then says, however, she's not really wrong. You have no idea what's in the lip balm you made because it's a mashup of your old lip balms, some of which you don't know or remember the ingredients for. Scraping off the top doesn't make this any more appealing, and I'm not convinced this would remove all bacteria from the product or containers. I do absolutely love a homemade gift. I think it's so special when someone gives you something you made, but if someone came up to me and told me they melted down their old shit, their old lip balms, and then handed it to me, I'd be like, thank you. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. Now, our next story comes from Silliest of Geese. Quick trigger warning on this one, it contains death of a loved pet. So if you do want to skip it, please feel free to do so. Timestamps are always down in the description and along the timeline below. And it says, am I the arsehole for refusing to comfort my friend after her dog died? My friend, 22 female, told me that I, 23 female, was heartless and cold because I didn't validate her feelings. I've never been good at sympathizing with people. I have zero patience for what I consider self-pity and victim mentalities. Maybe a part of that is I went through a childhood full of literal torture, and it made me very independent with my feelings. My friend called me after a dog got put down, and I expressed minimal condolences. She told me she didn't want to talk about it and asked about the huge opportunity I'd gotten the same day. I told her after some pressuring, but she failed to show much excitement. She was more upset that she couldn't go to the event because it's private. After the call, she texted me and apologized and saying she's a burden. She said she feels like she's failing because she wants to be the person that makes my day. I told her that's a ridiculous standard. She started saying that she's starting to think she had a bad childhood because she has abandonment issues. I'll admit, that comment hit a nerve. She had a normal upbringing besides divorced parents. She told me she's venting because her dog's death brought it out, which makes no sense to me, but okay. Then she asked me to be extra nice and requested me to send her comforting texts while she was taking a nap. I was also asked to be gentle towards her and baby her. I told her that I was sorry about her dog, but that I wasn't going to write long affirmations or validate her feelings, especially while I was at work. She told me I was a heartless person and seemingly cold when I refused, which I feel like is not true. She seems to think I should lie to make her feel better. So, am I the arsehole for not validating her feelings or comforting her fully? That's pretty wild, you know. Your friend, this is meant to be someone that you love. Any of my friends came up to me, told me, you know, one of their pets died, whatever it was, they're absolutely grieving. You can imagine how they're feeling at this moment in time. All she asked for was a few kind texts while she napped. I mean, that's a pretty low bar, isn't it? Even if you think it, you know, is a bit weird or it doesn't suit you or whatever, your friend has asked you just for this little bit of help. It's not really difficult. And then there was the part that you expected her to be enthusiastic about your good news on the same day her dog died. That's wild in itself. And then there was a part where you was basically saying to her that you had real trauma, so your feelings don't count. And again, it's just such wild thinking. I mean, your difficult past can explain something that you're going through, right? And I totally get that. But it doesn't make her grief any less valid. You know, divorced parents can cause abandonment issues. That doesn't make it any kind of competition. You can validate her feelings that maybe there is something there, you know? No one knows until she's able to unpack that. And it just got to the end to me, and I just thinking, you know, she's not asking you to lie. She's just asking you to be a friend on a day that she's finding really hard. Any of my friends phoned up and they told me that, you know, their pet died or whatever it was, and they're really struggling with that day. Hell yeah, I'd be there for them. I'd be jumping in my car right now and saying, let's go and do something together to make things a little bit easier if possible. But Chilton Gaines says, quoting, "I've never been good at sympathizing with people, have zero patience for what I consider self-pity and victim mentalities." And then says, "This is how arseholes talk. You're the arsehole." No Lavishness says you're the arsehole. Having a traumatic childhood explains why you have a low tolerance for emotions, but it is not an excuse to be heartless. A pet dying is a major life event for most people. By offering minimal condolences and then comparing her grief to your past torture, you are playing a game of suffering Olympics where everyone loses. You're effectively punishing your friend for having a normal emotional capacity just because you had to learn to suppress yours. And one more comment from Prismatic, who says, "You're so much of an arsehole that I don't even have words. Do not compare trauma regardless of whose benefit it's for. I'm sorry that you had a horrible childhood, but a lot of us did. I was emotionally neglected and abused by my family until just before I graduated. But when my girlfriend's cat died, I wasn't a heartless ice queen like you. Even though I was and still am actively grieving the death of my own father, the only safe parental figure I ever had. You need to take a long look in the mirror. You clearly have a lot of issues that need unpacking. Being emotionally independent shouldn't mean you lack empathy. If you care about your friend even slightly, then apologize. She asked for a few texts. She didn't ask for all of your attention to be on her. Typing her quick, "You're going to be okay," or just reminding you that people love you isn't difficult. If you're that scandalized by the idea, this is far more about you than anyone else. You're the arsehole. But now, what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's have one more story. This next one comes from Deck of Cards 98, who says, "Would I be the arsehole here for telling my parents they are terrible parents for not helping me during the hardest time in my life? I, 27 female, have grown up in a family that some would call transactional. My parents aren't as loving as I've noticed other parents are towards their kids, and they are always going through life checking boxes. Go to college, get a good job, get married, have kids, etc. My parents both got their masters, had high paying jobs, and are well off. They are now retired with pensions, living on a farm they bought in cash and doing well. Millionaires. 3 years ago, I was separating from my soon-to-be ex-husband, amicably, who tragically passed in a motorcycle accident shortly after we began our divorce process. He was 27, we had no life insurance, no savings, still living together, and everything tied together still. After the funeral, I called our lawyer's office to notify them of his passing and to see what needed to be done moving forward. They informed me that because of the timing of his passing and not all the divorce paperwork had been filled, that it was null and void. From a legal standpoint, I became a widow at 24. I live in Arizona where everything is community property, but this didn't really matter anyways because everything was still jointly in our names. I'd already been looking for a new higher paying job when we began separating, but had yet to find anything. He made about 60% of the income, and the total bills exceeded what I made. I was underwater with a sudden change in having to handle everything on my own. I'm very lucky I didn't lose my house or car, but for the past 3 years I've barely been making it. I was able to find a higher paying job, but things have still been tight. My credit is destroyed, and I had to use credit cards to pay for groceries and gas. Bankruptcy was not an option because my ex and I had a rental property together that had zero equity and wouldn't sell. My parents helped me a bit after me begging them to let me use the remaining college fund they had saved for me that I never used to stay afloat. They initially pushed back when I asked for help because they are paying so much money for my sister's vet schooling, which they saved for. But after talking with their financial advisor, they found the money. For context, this was the first time in my life I ever asked them for help. Prior to this situation, I had really great credit, smart financially, figured out how to get investment properties, etc. I took a lot of pride in being independent, so young and figuring out on my own. Fast forward to now, 3 years later, and I'm still barely making things work. I have a lawsuit for debt. My parents know how much I'm struggling and give me advice on what to do, but unfortunately, I'm in a unique situation that doesn't have an easy way out. I'm still being eaten alive by debt, but I don't have active plans to ask them for money. I'm just hurt. So would I be the arsehole for telling my parents they're terrible parents for letting me struggle for years with this alone and not helping me when they're so financially well off? The first commenter says, you were smart financially, but you and your husband had no life insurance and no savings, and your parents had already given you some help, but now it's been 3 years and you still want them to bail you out. You would be the arsehole, and you would also accomplish nothing except to further alienate them. Oyster says, you're the arsehole. OP is an adult without children who has investment property but doesn't want to sell that property to reduce her debt/support herself. Instead, she wants her parents to support her/pay her debts. Her parents are retired and have declined to do this. Both OP's and her parents' adult choices have adult consequences. The death of OP's separated spouse hasn't apparently negatively impacted her, just left her with all the financial resources they had together upon his death. OP should deal with the financial consequences of her adult choices using the financial resources she has. Make That Noise says, info. How are you planning to financially make things work after divorcing your husband if he hadn't passed away? I guess I don't understand how his passing and you getting all your joint assets affected you negatively financially. Opie says he was going to take over more of the assets and their monthly payments. I was going to move out and take my car, so that would have been my only responsibility besides rent and other essential monthly bills. Everything I acquired in his passing all had negative equity, so immediately upon his passing my income alone had to be used to pay the monthly payments. Subsailor says you're the arsehole. You're an adult. You were an adult when life happened. I'm sorry for your loss, but you're 27. You were 24 when your soon-to-be ex-husband died. At some point, people have to stop depending on their parents to be a bailout. Sorry if this sounds harsh, but life is often harsh. You prided yourself on being smart financially, yet no life insurance, investment properties that don't seem to help any, and no savings. You got dealt a bad hand, yes, but you were also very unprepared for what you were doing. Investment properties without insurance and savings. Recipe for disaster, as you hopefully see now. For all this, your parents were terrible. No. They just aren't a bank/credit card and aren't responsible for the bailout. And one more comment from Lord Commander who says you're the arsehole and made some poor financial decisions. Not sure how you think you were financially smart here. Your parents paid for your school and then you got married way too young. Your husband paid the majority of the bills. You guys somehow bought a rental property and a house to live in. I have no equity to sell either to get out of debt. You were going to divorce but had no plans on how to support yourself. Now you're mad your parents won't finance your life as a 27-year-old. Please point out where one financially smart decision took place here. And people were saying brutal but spot on. There's also some people questioning whether it actually belongs in the Am I the Devil subreddit, but what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being here. Truly, it's absolutely amazing. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.